In this presentation, we're going to talk about the use of accent marks in Spanish. First of all, to talk about the need for accent marks, we really are talking about the rules of how to pronounce words, because pronunciation is the reason that accent marks are used. You'll notice when you look at a page of writing that really most words really don't have accent marks on them because they do follow rules of pronunciation. So if we can talk about really two basic rules for pronouncing words in Spanish, it will become clearer to you why really so few words need accent marks. The first rule, rule number 1, hiding right here, the first rule that we would talk about for pronouncing words in Spanish is that we would first look at the spelling of a word. If a word literally ends in a vowel, the letter N or the letter S, then when you pronounce it, you are putting the stress on the next to last syllable. So if we look at this list of simple words that you've seen before, they're broken out into syllables, and you'll notice that they all end in either a vowel, the letter N, or the letter S. So in pronouncing, necesitas, you should be able to hear that the stress is falling on the next to the last syllable. Mochila, muchacho, primavera, llevan. Examples of words that are pronounced with no need for accent marks, following this rule about how to pronounce words that end in vowel N or S. So there must be a second rule for the words that end in consonants. If a word ends in a consonant, when we pronounce it, we're supposed to put the stress on the last syllable. Looking at these examples, escribir, individualidad, soportar, diseñador, expresar. The stress is placed on the ending syllable of the word, again, because these words end in consonants. Words that require accent marks must then be exceptions to those two rules, because most words don't have written accent marks on them. So most words have a built-in rule about how to pronounce them. If I'm looking at words that are exceptions to rules, the accent mark helps me recognize that. Other words that have accent marks, by the way, would be every single interrogative word. So you'll notice when you're using the question words, we call them, who, what, when, where, to where, how many, how much, why, they are written with accent marks. And then some shorter words, the meaning changes. If I write sí without an accent mark, it means if. If I write sí with an accent mark, it means yes. You know, el means the. El with the accent mark means he, and then noticing sometimes in sentences you'll see the word que. It's not in a question, it means that, compared to que in a question with an accent mark. Okay, so the accent marks just appear on some words to help us know the meaning of the word, and then in all interrogatives. Now, we said that exceptions to the rules, those two rules that we just talked about when we're stressing, have to have written accent marks. So if I look at papeleria, you should be able to hear that the stress is actually appearing on the end of this word, and yet it ends in a vowel. We said words that end in vowels should be stressed on the next to last syllable. However, the stress is not there. It's moved. I move it with an accent mark. That's what the accent mark does. Educación. It's not educación, but educación. So the stress is coming on the end of the word, and yet this word ends in an N. We said words that end in a vowel N or S should be stressed on the next to the last syllable, and yet it's not. So the written accent mark moves it. Física. Física. Again, you can hear the stress is coming over here. There is a written accent mark on it because it's not pronounced física. Difícil. Here's a word that ends in a consonant. Difícil. We said that the rules say that if a word ends in a consonant, it should be stressed on the end, but it's not. The stress is moved over. Difícil. How do I know the stress is moved over? Because that's how native speakers pronounce. When a native speaker says the word, they say difícil. They do not say difícil. They call it a lápiz. So the stress is here on the la. even though the word ends in a consonant and you expect it to be on the end of the word. Bolígrafo. Here where the stress comes, instead of on the next to last syllable like it might be. So the written accent mark moves the stress to a different place in the word than it's expected to be. Therefore, what you might be thinking is, this is you thinking, only exceptions to the rules have written accent marks. Things that follow the rules, words that follow along, do not need a written accent mark. So you have to listen, 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 and imitate. And that's how you learn correct pronunciation. If we practice adding accent marks if they're needed, let's try these. Vocabulario, vocabulario. This word ends in a vowel. It should be stressed on the next to last syllable. It is. The stress came on the la. No need for an accent mark. Argumento, argumento. The word ends in an O. It should be stressed right here, and it is. There's no need for an accent mark. Intención, intención. The accent is coming here. The stress is coming here. So it is accented. By the way, I-O-N is always accented. Okay, when you have an I-O-N ending, and it would be on the O. And furthermore, that is always going to be a feminine word. So that's just something to keep in mind about I-O-N. Materiales, 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 reales. Stress is there. There's no need for an accent mark. This word ends in an S. Vowel N or S, keep it on the next to last. Película, película. You can hear the stress is on the L-I, and yet this word ends in a vowel, so a written accent mark is needed because we have to move the stress over. Another, by the way, only vowels have accent marks on them. You do not put accent marks on consonants, okay? Automóvil, automóvil. You hear it? The stress is on the mo. Entender, entender. The stress is where it belongs. Definición, accent mark. Originalidad, originalidad. Stress is on the end. We're all set. Trabajo. We're all set. Escribir. Follows. Papelería, papelería, ría, instead of putting the stress here. Okay? So I hope that helps with thinking about why we have accent marks on words. Watch it again if that will make it more clear for you. But in summary, we could say something like this. So really, there are really just two basic rules for pronouncing words in Spanish. And those two basic rules are going to tell me if I'm pronouncing correctly that I don't need an accent mark or I do. The first rule was about words that end in, so I'm looking at the endings of words, a vowel, I'm going to say V for vowel, the letter N, I'm going to use a lowercase n, or the letter S. Those kinds of words ending in vowel N or S, those should be stressed on the next to last syllable. So vowel N or S, next to last. That's going to be my little quick way to remember the rule about pronouncing. Words that end in a consonant, my C for consonant, means they should be stressed on the last syllable. That's what the rule tells me. Exceptions to the rules need written accent marks. So if I'm going to break the rule about vowel N or S next to last, consonant last, then I'm going to have to break the rule by putting an accent mark into the word. Okay. Hasta la vista. Adiós.